ask you something that might make your chest feel a little tight. Why is it that no matter what you do, no matter how busy your day gets, there's one person who keeps slipping back into your mind, almost like they live there without paying rent? And the unsettling part is, you didn't invite them. Before we go deeper, take a second to like this video and subscribe, because what I'm about to share with you isn't just advice, it's something most people go their entire lives without understanding. Now listen carefully. When someone is constantly on your mind, your first instinct is to romanticize it. You start telling yourself stories. Maybe they're thinking about me too. Maybe there's some deep connection. Maybe this means something. But the truth is far more complex and far more uncomfortable. Your mind doesn't hold on to people randomly, it holds on to what is unresolved. That person you can't stop thinking about. They represent a loop that hasn't been closed inside you. It could be something you didn't say, something you wish you did differently, or even something they made you feel that you've never felt before. And your brain hates unfinished stories. So it replays them over and over again, not because of love, but because it's trying to make sense of something that never reached a clear ending. But here's where it gets even deeper. Sometimes it's not about them at all. It's about what they triggered inside you. Maybe they made you feel seen. Maybe they made you feel rejected. Maybe they made you question your worth in ways you weren't prepared for. And now, your mind keeps returning to them, not because they're special, but because the feeling they left behind is. You see, men often confuse emotional impact with emotional connection. Just because someone shook something inside you doesn't mean they belong in your life. But your mind doesn't care about logic in moments like this. It cares about resolution, and until it finds it, it will keep bringing that person back into your thoughts, again and again, like a song stuck on repeat. And the more you try to push it away, the stronger it becomes. Because resistance feeds obsession. So the real question isn't, why are they on your mind? The real question is, what inside you still needs closure? Now here's where most men go wrong. They take that constant thinking as a sign, almost like the universe is trying to tell them something, like there's an invisible thread connecting two minds across distance. And I understand why you'd want to believe that. It feels comforting. It gives meaning to the chaos in your head. But let me ground you in reality, because clarity is more powerful than comfort. Just because someone is on your mind does not mean you are on theirs. Human psychology doesn't work like a two-way mirror. It's not synchronized, it's not balanced, and it's definitely not fair. You can be thinking about someone constantly while they haven't thought about you in weeks. And that's not because you're less valuable. It's because emotional experiences are not shared equally. One person can feel everything while the other barely scratches the surface. And that imbalance is exactly what creates obsession. Think about it. When something is uncertain, your brain leans in. When something is clear and stable, your brain relaxes. So if this person gave you mixed signals, inconsistency, or moments of intense connection followed by distance, your mind gets trapped, because it keeps trying to solve the puzzle. Why were they so warm one moment and cold the next? What did I miss? What does it all mean? And just like that, they become a mental mystery you can't stop investigating. Not because they're thinking about you, but because you don't understand them, and your brain hates what it cannot explain. This is called intermittent reinforcement, one of the most powerful psychological hooks. It's the same mechanism that keeps people addicted to gambling. Unpredictable rewards create stronger attachment than consistent ones. So if this person gave you just enough attention to make you feel something, but not enough to feel secure, your mind locks in. And now you're stuck in a loop, replaying moments, analyzing conversations, imagining scenarios that may never exist. But here's the truth most people avoid. You're not missing them, you're missing the feeling of almost. And almost is one of the most dangerous emotional traps a man can fall into, because it keeps you investing in something that was never fully real to begin with. So before you convince yourself that they must be thinking about you too, ask yourself something more honest. Did they ever give you a reason to believe they would? Let me take you even deeper into something most people never hear explained this clearly: Because what I'm about to tell you is where emotional attachment actually forms. Your mind doesn't just remember people, it remembers states. Meaning, it doesn't just recall their face, their words, or their presence, it recalls how you felt when they were around you. So if that person made you feel powerful, chosen, desired, or even confused in a way that felt intense, your brain tags them as emotionally significant. Not logically significant, emotionally significant. And emotional significance is what creates mental repetition. This is why you can meet dozens of people, but only one or two stay stuck in your mind like they've taken permanent residence. It's not about how long you knew them, it's about how deeply they impacted your nervous system. Now here's the part that hits men the hardest. The mind often confuses emotional intensity with emotional compatibility. Just because something felt strong doesn't mean it was stable. And just because someone made you feel alive in moments doesn't mean they were right for your long-term peace. But your brain doesn't prioritize peace in the beginning. It prioritizes stimulation. So when someone is unpredictable, slightly unavailable, or emotionally inconsistent, your attention sharpens. You become more alert, more focused, more invested, because your nervous system starts treating them like a high-value emotional target. And without realizing it, you begin assigning meaning to every small interaction. A late reply becomes a sign, a simple message becomes a signal, a memory becomes a fantasy. And slowly, without noticing, you are no longer thinking about a real person. You are thinking about a constructed version of them inside your mind, built from hope, curiosity, and unfinished emotional data. And here's the truth that stings a little. That version of them only exists in your head, not in their behavior, not in their consistency, not in their actions. But your mind protects that version because letting it go would mean accepting something uncomfortable. That what felt meaningful may not have been mutual in the same way. And this is where men often get stuck. They don't miss the person, they miss the emotional peak that person created. But peaks are not meant to be lived in, they are meant to be passed through. And if you stay there too long, your mind starts mistaking the peak for a place you're supposed to return to, even when it never existed as a destination in the first place. Now, I want you to hear this with complete honesty, because this is where most men either wake up or stay stuck for months, sometimes years. You are not thinking about them all the time because they are thinking about you. That belief feels powerful, but it quietly puts your emotional control in their hands. And psychologically, that is dangerous territory, because it turns your thoughts into a dependency instead of a choice. Let me explain what's actually happening inside your mind. When someone leaves uncertainty behind, your brain does something very predictable. It starts filling in the gaps, not with truth, but with imagination. And imagination is always more emotionally charged than reality. So you begin to replay the best moments, the most intense eye contact, the messages that felt meaningful, the silence that felt heavy. But your brain removes the full picture. It deletes inconsistency. It ignores emotional confusion. It softens rejection. And suddenly, you are not remembering a real connection anymore. You are remembering a filtered emotional highlight reel. And that's why it feels so powerful, because your mind is no longer dealing with facts. It's dealing with emotion. Now here's the part that changes everything for most men. People don't stay on your mind because they are meant to be there. They stay because your brain is trying to regulate emotional discomfort. In simple terms, your mind is trying to resolve unfinished emotional tension. And until it finds resolution, it keeps returning to the same person like a broken loop. But here's the truth most people don't want to accept. Sometimes there is no deeper meaning. Sometimes there is no hidden connection. Sometimes your nervous system is simply attached to the emotional pattern they created, not the person themselves. And I know that can feel disappointing, even a little empty, because it removes the fantasy that something bigger is happening. But it also gives you something far more valuable: control. Because once you understand that your thoughts are not proof of destiny, but proof of emotional processing, you stop treating every memory like a message from the universe, and you start seeing it for what it really is. Your mind trying to let go, but not knowing how yet. And that is something you can work with. not something you are trapped inside forever. Now let's go even deeper into something most men never realize until it's already affecting their sleep, focus, and emotional stability. The more you try to stop thinking about someone, the more your mind brings them back. And this is not weakness, this is basic cognitive psychology. Your brain does not process, "Don't think about this," as a command. It processes the image first and the resistance second. So when you forcefully push a thought away, your mind actually rechecks it to make sure you are not missing something important. It's like telling yourself, "Don't look at that door." Now suddenly, that door becomes the only thing you can see. And this is exactly how emotional attachment turns into mental obsession. Not because the person is actively doing anything, but because your internal resistance is feeding the loop. And there's another layer most men don't notice. When someone is inconsistent, emotionally unpredictable, or gave you a strong emotional spike followed by distance, your brain starts to over-prioritize them. Why? Because unpredictability signals importance to the nervous system. Your mind interprets emotional inconsistency as something worth solving. So instead of letting go, it doubles down. It replays conversations. It imagines scenarios. It tries to decode meaning from silence. And over time, you are not thinking about what actually happened anymore. You are thinking about what it could have meant. And this is where emotional attachment quietly becomes mental captivity. But here is the truth that brings you back to reality. You are not losing control of your mind because of them. You are losing control because your attention is still emotionally tied to unfinished interpretation. And the mind will always return to what feels unfinished. Not because it is right, but because it is unresolved. Now, here is something important I want you to understand. If someone was truly consistent, truly clear, and truly emotionally safe for you, your mind would not behave like this. You would not be overthinking. You would not be analyzing silence. You would not be searching for hidden meanings. Peace does not create obsession. Uncertainty does. And once you see that clearly, you stop romanticizing the mental noise, and you start recognizing it as what it really is. Your nervous system trying to escape confusion by creating meaning where none is confirmed. And that realization is the first step toward breaking the loop. Now I want to ask you something that might feel uncomfortable, but it will give you a level of clarity you haven't had yet. If that person disappeared from your thoughts completely tomorrow, would your life actually get worse, or would it finally get quiet? Because there is a difference between love, attachment, and mental overactivation. And what most men mistake for deep connection is actually just a highly activated emotional loop that never settled. Let's be very clear here. A healthy connection brings calm consistency into your nervous system, but an unresolved emotional connection does the opposite. It creates spikes, highs and lows, hope and doubt, clarity and confusion, and your mind becomes addicted to the emotional contrast itself, not the person. This is why you can go hours, sometimes days, trying not to think about them, and suddenly one small trigger brings everything back. A song, a place, a notification sound, even boredom, because your brain has linked that person to emotional stimulation. And when your life becomes quiet, your mind goes back to what once made you feel something intense. But intensity is not the same as intimacy. Let me say that again in a way that really lands. Just because someone made you feel deeply does not mean they were safe for your emotional system. And your mind does not always choose what is healthy for you. It chooses what is familiar in feeling, even if that feeling is confusion, even if that feeling is longing, even if that feeling is emotional instability. Now here's the part that changes how you see everything. When someone is truly aligned with you emotionally, your brain does not need to constantly replay them, because there is no missing information. There is no unfinished story. There is no emotional puzzle to solve. But when your mind keeps returning to someone, it is often because the emotional equation was never completed. Not because they are thinking about you, but because your system never reached closure. And closure is not something another person gives you. Closure is something your mind creates when you stop feeding uncertainty with interpretation. And once that happens, something very interesting begins. The emotional charge slowly drops. the mental replay weakens, and the person who once felt impossible to stop thinking about starts to lose their grip on your attention. Not because they changed, but because your mind finally stopped trying to solve what was never meant to be endlessly analyzed. And that is when you start getting yourself back. Quietly, but powerfully. Now we arrive at the truth most men were never told in a direct way, because it removes the fantasy and replaces it with responsibility. If someone is always on your mind, the real question is not what they are doing. The real question is what your mind is doing with the lack of closure. Because here is the uncomfortable reality. People do not stay inside your thoughts by accident. They are continuously reactivated by your attention, your interpretation, and your emotional investment. And that means something very important. You still have influence over this loop. Not over them, but over the mental space they occupy. Let's remove the mystery for a moment. No one is inside your head thinking about you all day. That feeling, that belief, that hope, it comes from your own internal need for emotional resolution. And when that need is strong enough, your mind will simulate connection to avoid feeling uncertainty. It will replay moments that felt meaningful. It will exaggerate emotional significance. It will search for hidden signals in neutral behavior. Because the mind prefers a painful story over no explanation at all. But here is where everything shifts. The moment you stop treating every thought as a message and start seeing it as a mental habit, you regain control. Because thoughts are not commands. They are not destiny. They are not evidence. They are mental patterns firing based on emotional conditioning, and patterns can be changed. But only when you stop feeding them meaning. So if you want freedom from someone who lives in your mind more than they live in your life, you don't fight the thoughts. You stop interpreting them. You stop building stories around them. You stop giving them emotional weight. And slowly, the brain does what it naturally does when something is no longer reinforced. It lets go. Not instantly, not dramatically, but gradually, until one day you notice they didn't appear in your thoughts as often anymore. And that silence you feel in their absence, that is not emptiness. That is recovery. That is your mind returning to balance. And that is the moment you realize something powerful. They were never in control of your thoughts. You were just learning how to understand them.